Well, good morning. My name is Wendy Carrillo. Buenos dias. I proudly represent Assembly District 52 in the California State Assembly, which includes the communities of East Los Angeles, a great portion of Northeast Los Angeles and South Glendale, and of course the community in which we are today. I want to thank Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara, our sponsor for AB 1950, Alfred Frejo, the founder and CEO of Somos Group, Carol Hawkes, whose family was displaced and is part of the LMU Archives Department and program that is spearheading the history of this community. Melissa Arechiaga with the organization Buried Under the Blue. Eddie Santillan and his family, whose family led the creation of a small monument that's located right here called Los Desterrados. And it is this moment today, we want to ground it by acknowledging the history of our community. I am proud to stand before you today at this historical site commemorating the displaced communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, now more commonly which has referred to as Chavez Ravine, and to unveil AB 1950, the Chavez Ravine Accountability Act. AB 1950 is a crucial and critical step and aims to correct an injustice that displaced families and has lingered in the shadows of Los Angeles Eastside history for far too long. AB 1950, amid the 1950s, the vibrant communities of Palo Alto, La Loma, and Bishop, home to mostly Mexican-American families as well as Italian-American and Chinese-American families, saw an upheaval as families were uprooted and displaced in the name of progress with false promises of housing. Families were promised a return to better housing, but instead, they were left destitute. During this time, the city of Los Angeles employed various tactics pressuring homeowners to sell their properties, including using eminent domain. Specifically, AB 1950 will result in historical accountability by creating a public and searchable database detailing events surrounding the land acquisition. This will foster transparency and education about this pivotal moment. Reparative measures by proposing various forms of compensation, including offering city-owned real estate comparable to the original Chavez Ravine landowners and providing fair market value compensation adjusted for inflation. And lastly, an established permanent memorial. This would require the construction of a memorial right here in this community and the adjoining property to honor the displaced residents and their legacy. Again, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. For generations, Chavez Ravine stood as a beacon of hope and resilience, embodying the dreams and aspirations of families who built their lives with its embrace. With this legislation, we are addressing the past, giving voice to this injustice, acknowledging the pain of those displaced, offering reparative measures, and ensuring that we honor and remember the legacy of the families and the communities of Palo Alto, La Loma, and Bishop. I am a proud daughter of the city of Los Angeles, proud to have grown up in Boyle Heights, and even more proud to represent the very ground that we stand on today in the California State Assembly. But I am also a student of history with a minor in Chicano Studies from Cal State LA, and I recognize how difficult and traumatic it is to revisit this history that has for far too long been in the shadows. Today is a moment of education. It is our responsibility to honor this community, to pay tribute and respect to what happened here. The people in the photos that you may see when you Google what happened in this community are not abstract human beings of the past. They had lives. They loved. They had families. They had homes. They had community. And they have descendants, and you will hear from them today. I love my city. And it is my love for my city, our city of Los Angeles, that drives AB 1950 forward. I want to continue to be proud of my city, but a city also must recognize its wrongs and do the right thing to address them. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., The time is always right to do the right thing, and we must acknowledge the wrongs and we must make them right. We must acknowledge the institutionalized racism that drove the many families out of this community and call it out. We must acknowledge the violence and hostility towards our mostly Chicano and Latino communities and all vulnerable communities alike. We must acknowledge that doing nothing and denying the injustices of the past is not progress. As we move forward, I urge you to lend your support to establish the healing that is necessary for the descendants of these communities who lived right here in Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, and to restore a more healed community for all of us here in the city of Los Angeles. Unas pocas palabras en español. Hoy estamos proporcionando la ley AB 1950, que por primera vez a través del Estado da un reconocimiento importante para lo que pasó aquí entre los años de 1951 y 1959, que llegó a resultar una falsa promesa de viviendas a través de las comunidades que vivían aquí y que dejó a muchas familias latinas, italianas y chinoamericanas sin hogar, pero la mayoría comunidades y familias mexicanas y latinas. Una promesa de vivienda que nunca se cumplió, dejando a muchas personas y familias sin hogar a través de esta comunidad. Y por primera vez a través del Estado y a través de la ciudad de Los Ángeles estamos proporcionando justicia para esta comunidad. La ley AB 1950 proporciona una versión donde podemos traer justicia para el pasado, posiblemente dar compensación a las familias y a los descendientes de las familias que fueron removidos de esta comunidad, y también estamos trayendo una mucha importante historia que por mucho tiempo ya ha vivido en las sombras de la ciudad, pero que por ahora estamos trayéndolo al día para que la comunidad sepa lo que pasó aquí. No es algo del pasado, todavía vive en el futuro y tenemos una responsabilidad y obligación de reconocer la historia de nuestra comunidad y que esta comunidad por al fin, ahora en este año, tenga un poco de justicia. Muchas gracias. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to my friend and sponsor of AB 1950, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here. You know, our goal is really simple: to confront the historical injustice and to build a more fair society for all of us here in Los Angeles. What we seek to address with AB 1950 is knowledge, understanding, and healing that is long overdue. The Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop neighborhoods stood at some of a few areas that were actually accessible to Mexican Americans and other historically marginalized populations seeking housing security in the face of historic systemic discrimination at this point in history in Los Angeles. So why now? Because it is past time for the families who have not forgotten the trauma of being displaced to be acknowledged, to be respected, and to have some redress. The long-standing residents of these communities were never adequately compensated, as you all know, for their property, for their livelihood. Both landowners and tenants, some of whom had lived here for decades, were given no choice but to leave their homes. Many resisted, but eventually all were forced to relocate. We have an opportunity to address this, and we should, and we believe this legislation will not only provide long overdue compensation for the residents of these three vibrant communities, but it will also provide a vehicle for reconciliation and healing for all of the residents of Los Angeles. including the Los Angeles Dodgers and all of us who are fans. AB 1950 paves the way for a more equitable Los Angeles by addressing past wrongs and promoting reconciliation. It will help educate Angelinos about what we all now call Chavez Ravine's true history, fostering transparency and understanding. La comunidad en la que estamos hoy tiene muchas historias que contar. En estas colinas iban niños a las escuelas, fieles rezaban en la iglesia, familias cuidaban de sus animales, había bautizos, bodas, sepelios que marcaron la vida de las comunidades de la gente de Bishop, La Loma y Palo Verde. Estas comunidades, sus habitantes, la mayoría de ellos latinos, podían vivir en paz en un mundo que discriminaba contra sus derechos de vivir donde ellos quisieran. En esta tierra podían estar y crear sus propios sueños americanos. Fue un sueño que se convirtió realmente en una pesadilla. Primero llegaron los avisos de que sus hogares eran considerados abandonadas. Los que no aceptaron las condiciones injustas de venta fueron desalojados y hasta arrastrados de sus propios hogares. Y las promesas de construir viviendas públicas nunca se cumplieron. Hoy estamos aquí para escribir un nuevo capítulo en nuestra historia como mexicoamericanos en Los Ángeles. Un capítulo de donde se hace justicia y se busca la reconciliación con el pasado. A lo largo de mi carrera en el servicio público, mi objetivo siempre ha sido luchar contra las injusticias y crear una historia mejor y realmente justa para toda nuestra comunidad. Y por eso estoy patrocinando la propuesta de ley 1950. Queremos contar toda la historia de las comunidades de Palo Verde, La Loma y Bishop y hacer justicia porque tantos años se ha eludido. Este proyecto de ley presenta la oportunidad de compensar a los residentes de estas tres comunidades y de abrir la puerta a la reconciliación para todos los residentes de Los Ángeles, incluyendo a los Dodgers y a sus fanáticos, los cuales muchos de nosotros somos latinos. Gracias. Now I'd like to introduce Alfred Fraijo, founder and CEO of the Somos Group.
Buenos días a todos. Good morning. My name is Alfred Fraijo. I'm a proud Chicano lawyer and an advocate. I'm also the founder of an organization that has been providing assistance to the Assembly member and the Commissioner on this critical legislation that we are announcing today. You might say that this work is a passion project for myself and our staff. We know too well the injustice by government can upend families. I grew up housing insecure in LA, and growing up, the story of what happened to the residents of La Loma, Bishop, and Palo Verde was part of our cultural identity, and in some ways, a part of our own shared story of discrimination and invisibility. And while we identified with the injustice the residents experienced, we never carried the burden of displacement by a government that was supposed to protect us. This is a burden the families have carried alone for far too long. This bold legislation proposes to repair the historic injustice done to the residents of these three vibrant communities. Making the families whole once and for all is at the heart of this equation. But we also have a debt to pay to history and to the truth. The bill requires the creation of a comprehensive, publicly accessible database documenting the government actions, the loss of property, and the people who were displaced. The bill also calls for the building of a teaching memorial that commemorates the thriving neighborhoods that flourished in this area, the impact the government action caused, and also, let's not forget, the valiant efforts of many who stood up to these government forces and to the wrecking ball. Make no mistake, this bill is part of a larger movement to address historic injustices that so many have experienced over the course of our nation's history. Historic racial and economic discrimination is at the root of this injustice. And as a country, we have yet to officially account for how severely this has limited the economic prosperity of so many people of color. Our homes are central to our livelihood and is the most important asset in building generational wealth. It is a ticket, it certainly was for me, out of a cycle of poverty. Today, in this great city and state, we mark a moment of change and a moment of opportunity. I applaud Assemblymember Carrillo and Commissioner Lara for their commitment to do what is right, for their commitment to bring justice to so many, and for their commitment to start an honest discussion about our dark past so that we may not repeat it. Thank you very much. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce two very special guests. The first we will hear from is Clara Jaquez. Clara. Following Clara's remarks, we will also hear from Melissa Arechega. Please help me welcome Clara. Carol. All right.
We haven't met before, and I would love to work with you on this project. I'm surprised you haven't reached out to me before. Considering everything that you're doing.
We've been working with your team. We've been working
No, not
with you.
my team, not me.
Oh my God.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Come on. Speak your truth over here, Carol.
Give me room,
Yes.
okay? This is okay, I guess. I'm kind of short. And I'm also 81 years old. Yeah, that's cool. I'm 81 years old, and sometimes I have word replacement problems, but I want to start, like our president. Anyway, I want to start by saying thank you to Commissioner Lara and also to you, Wendy, for inviting me to say a few words here today. My name is Carol Jaquez, and I'm here today because what I've been shown about justice for us, I'm in favor of that. I mean, first I thank, and then I always forget to thank my husband, because without him I wouldn't be here. Bill Rumble, a retired teacher from Wilson High School. Anyway, I was born in the barrio called Chavez Ravine, what we call it now, Palo Verde. And my grandfather came to Los Angeles in 1907, and he had a little horse and buggy where he picked up fares along what we know now as the state park. That was the Union Pacific train that used to go by there, and corn used to pop out of them. And he would pick up fares. He would pick up fares and take them to Alvera Street to the hotel, and sometimes merchandise that came on those trains that are no longer there. But that's how he made his first few bucks, to go first to Bishop, and then over to buy his own place in Palo Verde. So he bought two lots. One lot was for the family, and these people, when they came to Los Angeles, actually, when they bought these lots, they built those homes one room at a time. So you ask the question, why were we there? We were there because first of all, there were covenants that prohibited people of color to live anywhere in Los Angeles, where all of us now live. We couldn't live there. But Mexicans and people of color could live right there in that little place called Chavez Ravine. Why? Because there was a rock quarry there, and there was a brickyard. And those people that came, the first generation people that came, it was easy to get maybe horses back then. We were talking about the teens, 20s, everything changed over the years. Different people had different experiences, and they were able to come pick up rocks, pick up bricks, and pick up Mexicans and Mexican descent people. And we built Los Angeles, Alvera Street, and all of that. We were there working way back when. And what did we have that was so special? We were a bilingual, bicultural community. We didn't have the culture now that is out there and available to us. And we couldn't even buy the foods. That's how we started making. My abuela came with a metate, right? Because she was expecting corn. There was no corn here. We had to make flour tortillas. So we've been here since the turn of the last century. And there was almost more than 1,000 people that were taken out by eminent domain in 1951. My family was part of them. They promised, they promised, it's a story, I don't want to go there, but they promised housing. And many of us were homeowners. What they didn't see, first of all, I want to say we were not a slum. By the 1940s, we were not a slum. And that's a lie when you hear we were a slum. We had a main street. It was called Effie. And if you do a straight line from Effie and Echo Park, that main street had two churches. A big Catholic church with beautiful statues that came from Spain. There was a priest house. There was a nun house. There was a place we could meet. There was a stage. And there was a Methodist church. And there were two schools. And we had a barber. And we had a community with a main street. We weren't just out there scattered in the hills. We lived the American, what my family would have thought, American dream. But we could not go out and learn how to speak Spanish because they didn't have that available for us. What they had for my ancestors is they had the Americanization Act, where we all had to go to learn how to eat turkeys at Thanksgiving and things like that. Anyway, I'm here. And then later, in 1959, the place stood like bare acreage for 9 years. And they took our houses. The city took our houses and sold them for $1 each. And people would come and they would remove the houses. So then by 1959, the city sold that acreage to the Dodgers. And in 1959, there was a second tragedy that happened. And there was an eviction of a handful of people that happened at that time. Many people don't understand how long that place took taken. They didn't know what to do with it. Anyway, so that's why 51 to 59 is important, because those are the people that were harmed. So I stand here today thanking the state of California and the people that have brought this forward. And I ask, I think this is a great bill. How can you be against it? I'm for justice, not only for us, but for everyone, that past, present, future. I'm a Chicana, I'm an activist. So here goes, okay. I think that the state should come together with the city and with the county, and we will be at the table with you to create, to first tell the history, first educate, and then look to see what's appropriate in terms of whatever needs to be done to make a person whole. Can you ever really make a person whole? I don't think so. When I moved, I was 8, going to be 9. My brother died, and we moved in September. My brother died of leukemia. So we had to move near Children's Hospital. Now, everyone's got stories like this, you know. It was tough for me when I saw that eviction in 59. And I was so mad that maybe 25 years ago somebody filmed me, and I said a bad word on film about the Dodgers because I was blaming them for everything that had happened to us until I became involved with a group at Loyola Marymount, and I started to look at the history, and that's when I learned all of this. And for our people, the Dodgers had nothing to do with it. It was the city of Los Angeles. For others, yes. But in any case, I think that kind of history needs to be made very clear. And I have partnered for 8 years with a woman by the name of Dr. Priscilla Leyva. She's a historian. First working at Cal State LA, Chicano historian. And we hooked up and we went to a number of universities because I knew we had a lot of pictures. And the reason I knew that is because Eddie Santillán from Los Desperados are another group. He's here today. And his father and we has been having a picnic right at this place every year, where people come together with their photographs and they share food and they share stories and they share hugs every year. That hasn't happened anyplace. We're special in that way because when they evicted those people, boom, over 1,000 families, it was like you put a bomb to us and we just disappeared like overnight. So we started to come together and call ourselves los Desterrados. That's another story. So the Desterrados, Priscilla and myself went forward to Loyola Marymount because we needed to put faces on those people that I knew. We were invisible, completely invisible. And the only way I knew to put faces is because we had generational photographs. My grandfather, the baby that my grandmother lost, that we may have buried in the backyard because we were poor at that time. So my tias, one woman came to the picnic and she had pictures of me as a baby because her family, that's how close we were. So anyway, I'm in favor. I haven't read the bill, and the bill is in the details, and I look forward to working with a state, with a county, with a city, because everyone is responsible for this, including the federal government and the kinds of laws that were available at that time. So we come forward with photographs and stories and a compilation from all of that. So today, we put something together very quickly for you, and you have our phone number. And here, I also want to introduce Dr. Cynthia Beck from Loyola Marymount, our archivist is here, and we've been working on this for a very long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carol. Melissa Archega, please come up.
Hello, good morning, Grand Rising. Today we stand on Yagna land, the land of the Quiche Nation, the first lineal descendants of the LA Basin and Orange County. I would like to spend a special thanks to Chief Andy Salas of the Quiche Nation for his wisdom and guidance. I am Melissa Archega, the co-founder with Vincent Montalvo of Buried Under the Blue, a 501(c) nonprofit organization created by the members of the three communities to preserve the history and to start the journey towards justice, reparations for the three communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. I hope today our members of the three communities that are no longer with us but are now our ancestors are here with us today in this historical moment. Today marks the start of the journey to correct the injustices that were done to the people of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. Our communities grew our own produce. We raised our own meats. We were self-sustainable before self-sustainable became hip. My family, the Archegas, the most documented family in the history of the three communities, and the stories of the three communities can never be told without us. But we are not the only families to face the violent evictions on May 8, 1959, known as Black Friday. We must hold all city, state, county, and federal agencies accountable for their part in the destruction of the three communities, plus stealing all future generational wealth from the residents, both owners and renters, and more importantly, your Los Angeles Dodgers that still benefit and occupy our homes today. We did not only lose our communities, but our homes. Most of our residents were homeowners in a time when Mexicans could not own homes, but we did. We did not just own one, but many. My family owned more than 5 homes, and the city of Los Angeles shamed us for having so many. The history of the three communities even predates Chicano history and the civil rights movement. We started in 1951, but yet our history is not written or taught to us in schools with our true, only false narratives. Our organization, Buried Under the Blue, was the first to set out our list of demands for the three communities. We demanded that the three community centers be created in the names of the three communities that were destroyed and be owned by our organization. We also demand public apology from all public agencies and the Dodgers for what they did to our three communities. We also demand financial reparations for all the homeowners and renters, as we were community and land back should go to the Quiche Nation. We also demand that a monument be erected in the name of the three communities, that would have all the family members' names in history. This was just a few, and there's more to come. Today, we join forces with Commissioner Richard Ladd and Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo, justice to the people of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, wrongfully known as Chavez Ravine. Hashtag not Chavez Ravine. Sorry about that. I will close with this. Let the journey begin, and may the ancestors guide us to justice and peace. Thank you for all of you being here today. Please take the time to visit our website, www.buriedundertheblue.com. Sign the petition for justice for the 3 communities, and you can follow us on all of our social media handlers. Thank you. Levántate.
Thank you for that, and thank you, everyone. I think it is absolutely true to say that it is our ancestors that are guiding us here today. And I just also want to just give a special recognition to the fact that representation matters. You know, we are here because we love our community. We grew up in our community. We are students of history of our community. And the commissioner and I, as well as Alfred, are just kids from the east side that are trying to do good. You know, both Alfred and I went to Roosevelt High School in Boyle Heights.
Roosevelt!
The commissioner went to Garfield High School on the east side in East LA. And we are now in incredible positions to do good and bring justice and bring the voices of our community to the state legislature, to the Los Angeles City Council, to the county, to our federal partners, and really talk about what happened here and what continues to happen here. So we are on a march towards justice for the communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. And we encourage all of the family members, all of the descendants to reach out to us, because this is not a movement that we do alone. It is a movement that we do together. So at this time, we'll like to open it up for any questions from the press.
Can you give a sense, Assemblywoman, can you give a sense, some sort of estimate of how many families would qualify for these reparations, how much it would cost? And then can you clarify if there are any costs borne, would they all be paid for by the city, or would the city, federal government, and county also incur some of these costs?
And you're with?
LEJO News.
Thank you. So this is the beginning step. We know that through history and through the projects already being done at LMU and stories already being told and what you heard today, that there were about 1,000 families displaced. More than 1,000 families displaced between 1951 and 1959. This is the first time that there is an effort across the state of California to even begin the conversation about reparations, displacement, acknowledgement of families, acknowledgement of history. So we're at the beginning. And we hope that with the right approach, as this bill moves forward and as we bring more partners together, we will have more answers to your questions. But, we're talking about hundreds of families that were displaced, more than 1,000. And so in 3 different communities. So this is the beginning step. Okay. Any additional questions?
So do you foresee monetary compensation?
I'm sorry?
Do you foresee monetary compensation at some point?
The goal is for reparations, absolutely. Now, how far it takes us to get there is a conversation that we're just beginning. And we have seen that there are other examples of when land back and land talks related to giving back property to communities have been successful. And so if it's been done before, it can happen here as well.
That's right.
The last speaker talked about the Dodgers benefiting from this. How much are they responsible for this, and how far are you with conversations? Have you started conversation with the Dodgers?
We have absolutely started conversations with the Dodgers, and I think there are different opinions related to responsibility, what happened between the beginning of the displacement in the 1950s versus the resolution and the motions by the Los Angeles City Council to bring in a baseball team, both in San Francisco, it was the Giants, and for Los Angeles, it was then the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so both teams came to California at the same time. They're different conversations, but they're part of a shared history. And so some folks place blame, some don't. And I think part of what we want to create is an opportunity for healing and an opportunity for everyone to come to the table and to really find a pathway forward in what happens to these communities.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
Has there been a conversation as to who will qualify, or has the conversation even started yet?
again, as we mentioned, this is, it's an early process. And so part of it is ensuring that we have the right database, which is why part of the bill includes data, transparency, accountability, so that we can begin those conversations. And I want to also let the insurance commissioner and Alfred with Somos have an opportunity to respond to any of the questions.
Yeah, I have a question here with the California report, Solid Dollars. LA history is replete of these kinds of examples, right? This is a very prominent one, but look at every freeway in Los Angeles,
Right.
where people who once lived there are now gone. So do you think this is a model? Is this a template? And if so, how far out? I mean, how many instances could there be of offering reparations to people who lost their homes in the past because of things that were built there?
Well, then you begin to measure justice. Does justice ever have a measurement? Right? So this is a beginning of one conversation. The communities of La Loma, Palo Verde, and Bishop, the families and descendants of these communities are still here. And they're here with us now. And so what we want to do is, at the very minimum, our responsibility at this moment, in this moment in time, is to move this project forward. If other projects come to light, then they will. But we can't think about what will happen in the future. We're focused on the present and ensuring that we create justice for the past.
Thank you. I am a resident of Solano Canyon, Lydia Moreno, and La Loma was part of my community. La Loma and Bishop have sat vacant since the 1950s. How do you feel about Frank McCord's involvement in the parking lots and the land that is now in France? Has there been a conversation with Frank McCord?
Well, again, we'll continue the conversations that are necessary, but right now we are focused on introducing this bill, AB 1950, and ensuring, one, that we ensure that we are educating the public about what happened here in these three communities, that we're moving this piece of policy forward, and that it passes the committees necessary for it to get to the governor's desk and for us to be able to move forward. Again, we are open to all conversations and bringing everyone to the table to ensure that voices are heard, that education is a priority, and that we get it right? And so this is just the beginning.
Oh, good.
Well, again, thank you all for coming today. This is I think we all like to get into some good trouble, and this is some really good trouble to get into. I always believe that history is written by those in power. And so decades later, we are now empowered, and we are creating an opportunity to revisit the history that took place in this community and creating the justice and opportunities that are needed for the families and descendants of the three communities in question. So Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. And again, thank you all very much for coming. This concludes our press conference. Thank you all. A press release will be made available.